Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. I need some thumbs up. If you can hear me, please give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. I want to use the earphones because my office kind of echoes sometimes. So that's why I'm using the earphones. May I get a thumbs up if you can hear me clearly? Please. Good morning, Shumani. Good morning, Difelani. Good morning, everybody. If you can hear me, please say yes. I can hear you. So we can get started. I would like us to use the time that we have together as well as possible. Perfect. Everybody can hear me. Good morning to everybody. My name is Nicolette Mashile. For those who might not know, today we're talking about budgeting. And basically, what I want to do or what I would like to achieve in this session is to ensure that by the time you leave today, you have an understanding of what budgeting is, number one, but also you understand how to do it. There is a poll that I have put in there. So if you look on your dashboard, you will see chat, you will see questions, you will see poll. Please, I'd like to request that everybody uses those three different ways of communicating with us. So if you would like to chat, if there is something that you'd like to comment on, agree, disagree, please put it into the chat. If there is a question that you would like to pose, please put it in the question, and please do vote in the poll so I get a better understanding of where the difficulty lies when it comes to budgeting, right? I would like to do things a little bit differently today. What I'd like to do is I'd like everybody to send their questions now, the questions that you may have right now that you would like answered. Please send them in right now. I'm going to actually do this the other way around. I'm going to start talking about budgeting. However, I'd like to start also answering questions because what I generally find is that I may come and have a conversation with you guys about what budgeting is, and I could be far off from where you want to be. So what I ideally would like is to start answering some of your questions as early as possible, because whatever you are asking, I can assure you that somebody else will also like to ask. It just so happens sometimes that we're shy and we don't get to ask the question that we really would like to ask, right? But I will get into what is budgeting, what budgeting looks like, what it should be, what it should not be. And I think I should start off by maybe giving you guys a story. So back in 2016, I used to work for Nitrogen, or an advertising agency. It's now non-existent. I think they retrenched some of their staff last year during the COVID-19 lockdown. I'm going to be drinking my tea. Yeah, I drink rooibos with milk. It's awkward, I know, but it's one of those things that I do. Good morning, Katharina, all the way from Namibia. So I worked at Nitrogen and I used to earn a very high salary, right? And the only reason why I actually earned a very high salary was because we didn't have benefits. So essentially, your package or your salary, you needed to ensure that you can still pay for medical aid, you can still pay for life insurance, you can still contribute to your retirement. And I think a lot of people always take this for granted that when you are having to do those things yourself, all of a sudden your salary has to be higher than what the average person earns, because the average person works in companies where they get fringe benefits, and those fringe benefits include medical aid, they would include group life, they would include some contribution to retirement, right? So it is very important for you to keep these things at the back of your mind whenever you hear me speak about why I was earning such a huge salary. So, in earning such a huge salary, one of the other things that happened was that I thought in my head I had a lot of money, right? My salary at that time, my take home was 75,000 Rand. And I thought, ooh, I have lots and lots of money. So, I did not budget. For a very long time, I earned that money and I didn't budget. The budget was in my head, right? So I thought, okay, no, I know exactly how much I had paid off my car. In actual fact, I was paying rent at that time. I was paying insurance. So I kind of knew what those amounts were. So for me, I thought, ah, I earn enough not to budget, you know? But in hindsight, when I look at how much I was saving then in comparison to how much I'm saving now, there's a very big discrepancy. Now I earn, may say maybe somewhere I can make that same amount of money in a month, right? Say I do make 75,000 Rand in a month. I save far more now because I budget versus when I was earning that amount of money and I had less debt then than I have now. So now I'm paying for my car, I'm paying for my house, I'm paying insurance, I'm paying for rates and taxes. So there's quite a lot that I'm now paying for. However, I'm still finding that I'm saving far more now than I am saving when I was actually working for a company that was paying me. I had less debt and I basically paid for my living expenses were a fraction of what my living expenses are now. And I realized that the reason why that was because I now know where my money goes. Then, because I kind of knew what I needed to pay for, it was easy for me to be able to walk into a shop and simply buy things because in my head, I know how much I have. That was actually very false. I did not know how much I had. I knew the balance that was in my bank account at all times. But the balance is not always a reflection of how much money you actually have. This is important for you to note down. The balance that's in your bank account is not a good reflection of how much money you actually have. And the only reason for this is that money generally in your monthly expenses is allocated to certain things. And if you do not pay for all of your things in the beginning of the month or when your salary comes in, it means that there's still certain things that you still need to pay for throughout the month. So essentially, the money that's in your bank account, the balance that you see, is not entirely yours. And you only know this when you do a budget. When you don't do a budget, you may see a balance of 10,000 Rand in your bank account and assume that you've got 10,000 Rand to spend. So when you now go to shops and you see nice things online, you think in your head, oh, but I've got 10,000 Rand. So I actually can buy this thing. But forgetting that there is still grocery for the rest of the month that you still need to cover. There may be unexpected expenses that may pop up throughout the month that you should still be able to cover. But because you actually have not allocated that money correctly to where it should be, that's where you sit with a problem. Of course, we have already started, Matsediso. It's 8 minutes past 10 o'clock. The session started at 8 promptly. I'm a very punctual person. My friends know me. I actually get so upset with them whenever they are late for things because I'm just like, why are you not on time? Matsediso, if you cannot hear anything and you cannot see anything, it means that you have not logged in correctly. Please, I ask you to log out and log in correctly because I'm assuming everybody else can hear and see, right? So yes, but also if you can see the chat, Matsediso, you should be able to see and hear me. So it could just be your network. So again, very, very important that you do budget. If ever you want to understand what is the reasoning for budgeting, my most important reason for budgeting is knowing exactly where your money is going, knowing exactly how much money you have to spend, and knowing exactly how much money you need to be able to live the life that you want to live. Okay, so we're going to start off with what your budget should consist of. Remember, I said, please ask your questions so that I can start answering your questions as quickly as possible. All right. There's a question that says, I have a budget. However, at the end, I always overspend. Does it mean I'm under budgeting? No. So what it actually means is that you have a budget, but you are not following the budget. Or your budget is unrealistic. So it's two of those reasons. Either your budget is unrealistic and you are budgeting from your head, or you actually don't follow the budget, right? So it's important, remember, that when you are budgeting, it's like you going into a grocery shop. The day before you actually go into your grocery shop, you write down a list of all the things you need to buy. So you know you've got 1,000 Rand to spend. So you write, I need soap, I need food, I need meat, I need vegetables, and you know exactly what you need. You kind of know the prices of those things, so you put them on a list and they should cost you 1,000 Rand or less. Now, when you walk into the shop, two things can either happen. You can either spend 1,000 and less, and that is when you strictly follow your budget and you are able to buy all the things that you have put on your grocery list. If you spend more, it either means that one, you have not followed your budget, so you have added things in there that were never on your grocery list, or two, you have under allocated money to the different things that you want to buy. So let's say, for instance, you go in there and you're like, I'm going to buy 4 trays of chicken, and you have only allocated 20 Rand per tray. The reality is that a tray of chicken may cost you 60 Rand. So now when you walk in there and you buy 4 trays at 60 Rand, all of a sudden you are now buying more. You are overspending. So that's why I say either you are not following the budget, so you are adding extra things to your grocery list that you did not plan to buy, or two, you are actually not allocating enough money to the things that you actually need to buy. So it's important for you. And that's why I say a lot of people, what they do is they go like this, it costs me 1,000 Rand for groceries every month. No, go back to the previous month and ask yourself, how much did I spend on grocery throughout the month? Because what a lot of us do is we only allocate the amount of money that we used on the first day after we get our salary. So you get your salary today, you go into the grocery shop, you buy all your groceries, and then you've spent 1,500 on your groceries. Forgetting that that is the beginning of your month. We know for a fact that as you are going throughout the month, you are going to go into Woolworths, you are going to go into Pick n Pay, you are going to go into the takeaway shops. So you've got to look at your month in weekly chunks. That's how I always say. Instead of buying grocery for the whole month, because there is no one person who can realistically shop, especially for food, for the whole month. You may be able to do it for your cleaning agents. You may be able to do it for light bulbs. You may be able to do it for all those things because you know exactly how much soap lasts you a month. But most of us do not know how much food we need to last us a month. Also, you get bored. You're a human being, so you get bored. So you may have bought your groceries in the beginning of the month. You've got your meals planned. And then week number 2 comes and you're like, yo, I am sick of eating chicken, or I'm sick of eating beef. So now all of a sudden what you start to do is you go now into takeaways. You start going to shops to buy quick meals. The other thing that can happen is that our lives change. So yes, for the next 2 weeks, you may think, I know exactly how I'm going to eat. And then something happens and all of a sudden you're working late, you've got a late meeting, and cooking now becomes something that is impossible for you to do. So what happens is now you need a quick meal. So you go out of your budget now and you start spending money for food. So it's those kind of things that are very, very important for you to remember, because those things are going to jeopardize your budget, all right? How does one budget when one's expenses are more than the money that comes in? Fact is, I'm going to be very, very honest with you, and I'm going to be very, very brutally honest. If you are earning less than what you need to take out, it means you are living above your means. So remember, there was one video that I did where I used an example of apples. So if you are being given 5 apples, but you need 8 apples, it means that you are always in a deficit. So it means that you are essentially going against the first rule of money. And the first rule of money is that you've got to live within or below your means. And within or below your means is that you need 4 apples instead of 5 apples. Or you actually only spending or eating 5 apples in a month. If you have to eat more than 5 apples, it means that all of a sudden you are living above your means. And that means that you're gonna have to make some cuts in your budget and in your spending up until you can balance out your income versus your spending. And there are places where you can cut. I know people will say to me, no, I can't cut. No, no. There are definitely places where you can cut. And it's unfortunate because those places generally are places where we get the most comfort. And that's where the problem lies. The problem is that where you have to cut, where you have to start cutting, is the place where you get the most comfort. The other alternative versus cutting, which is where I personally am a big fan of, is creating another income stream to look at the different areas in your life where you need to spend. So we'll come back to that one. I like that question. How does one prioritize as to what is important? Currently, I'd like to complete my vehicle loan by making double payments. I've heard that this may not be the best idea, but what I should rather be putting the money in stocks or savings. I know very little about stocks. Okay, so we need to be very clear about listening to other people's ways of doing finances. It's very dangerous to listen to what Norma is doing with her finances or what Agrineth is doing with her finances, because it will not work for you unless your finances, your life situation, your dreams and your goals look exactly like Nicolette's. So if Nicolette says to you, I am able to save 50% of my salary, and you want to come and do exactly the same thing, then your income, your goals, your dreams, your life situation needs to be identical to what Nicolette's life situation looks like. This is why I always say personal finance is personal. It is called personal finance for a reason, because it is exactly that. It is personal. So what I do in my household will never look the same as what you do in your household, simply because our goals, our dreams, our income don't look the same. So to try and follow somebody's bulletproof ways of managing their finances, that is the one-way ticket for you to get yourself into trouble. That is the one-way ticket for you to actually not make it in your finances, because you are copying somebody who you do not know what else it is that they do, how they manage their finances, what their financial situation looked like, what their goals are, what their expectations are. So when we talk about prioritizing, you've got to prioritize according to what is productive. So I want you guys to write the word productive. Productive is a very important word because productivity is what makes you make income. If you are not productive, you cannot make an income. So when we talk about you prioritizing what needs to be on your budget, there is no prioritization. There is a parallel prioritization of the things that make you productive. So for instance, somebody may say to me, if I don't get access to DSTV and watch my sport every single week, I am not productive because I have dimmed the light on my creative side. Thus, it means that you have no need or have no zest in life to go for things that could potentially give more money into your bank account. So it's always things like that you've got to keep in mind, that whenever people say to me, what do I need to prioritize first? It's difficult to say that because the reality is that you may need certain things in your life that make you productive, that make you want to go to work, that make you want to start up that side hustle. And those things need to be reflected in your budget. You may need to buy a pair of sneakers every single month so that you are motivated to go to work, so you can feel like there's a reason for you to wake up every single morning, right? You may need your child to go to a certain school so that you can feel productive, so that you can feel motivated to wake up every single morning and go to work. You can simply say to yourself, but my child goes to St. Stadiums, so I have no choice, I have to wake up. That's your motivator. Now, if I say prioritize paying off debt, now I'm saying don't prioritize taking your child to a good school. Now, all of a sudden, you're working now every month for paying off debt. Does that make sense? It doesn't make sense, right? So that's why it's important that you are going to sit with your finances and decide what are the things that motivate you to keep going. What are the things that motivate you to wake up every morning and go to work? What are the things that you know you don't like selling? don't like selling Herbalife, you don't like selling Avon, you don't like selling Slimming Tea. In fact, you don't even like selling clothes to people. However, because you know that there is something on your budget that needs an additional income, you will wake up every single morning and go to work. You will answer those questions on WhatsApp when somebody says, oh, but how does Herbalife help you lose weight? And you will make sure that you will sell, because that's your additional income stream. If baking is what you do, you will make sure that you are getting clients and you are waking up to bake. You see how I'm awake this morning with you here? Because I know for a fact that this is what brings an income into my life. And because I want to drive that Range Rover, I need money. So what is motivating me to wake up every single morning is a Range Rover. Yes, I can downgrade my car. However, it is important for me to drive a Range Rover. For me, because I need something that tells me why I must wake up every single morning. I must wake up every morning, go look at my Range Rover and say, yeah, you are working, my sister. And the only way to be able to get that right is to have that one thing that motivates you. And Ramit Sethi calls that your money dials. I'm going to type it in here. Your money dials. And he says we all have our money dials. Every single one of us has got a money dial. I want to type his name, Ramit Sethi. So in case you want to go and read more on money dials. So it's important that you do know what your money dial is, because your money dial needs to be reflected on your budget. Because your money dial ultimately is that one thing that you need that makes you productive. I've already explained all that. Now, the problem is that because there are rules that money coaches have put out there, oh my goodness, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this, don't do that. The problem is that a lot of us then don't do those things. And when we don't do those things, we are not satisfied. So when you are a dissatisfied person, you end up trying to find satisfaction in things that do not actually give you satisfaction. I hope I'm making sense. So listen to what I'm saying. When you do not allocate money to your money dial on your budget, you will end up, go and Google Ramit Sethi and money dials. You will end up spending your money on things that do not bring you satisfaction. And then you will end up doing so many of those things that you will never get the satisfaction. And that's how you start wasting money on things that do not make you productive. So it is important for you that on your budget, when you are prioritizing, I would say prioritize parallelly. So you have your living expenses, you have your debt, you have your protective expenses. Basically, your protective expenses are your insurance policies. You've got to pay your insurance, because I know what a lot of people do is that on their budget, when money is kind of tight, the first thing that goes is insurance. But what happens if you get yourself into trouble? Now, all of a sudden, you can no longer pay for this one thing, but it is also damaged. So you're paying for something that you actually don't have access to. So it's important that you do take care of your things in a parallel fashion instead of it being in a priority kind of hierarchy. Let's talk about the second thing. The second P is predictability. I want you to write the second P. The second P is predictability. Let me tell you why it is easier for you to pay off debt or to pay debt or to have enough money every single month to pay for debt. It is because there is what is called predictability. You know exactly how much West Bank MFC is going to deduct from your bank or your account for your car. You know exactly how much money you need to pay towards your rent or your bond. So there is a predictability that happens. That is why a lot of us will say, no, I know exactly how much money is going to go out of my bank account via debit order. Because you know that West Bank is going to take their money, you know that the bond is going to take its money, or you're going to pay rent, and you know exactly how much. That's why those things generally are paid off. And the things that make you go above your budget are the living expenses, the things that make your quality life better. It's the money dials. I'm eating soup, guys. I'm very hungry. And I can feel like losing power, right? So what you've got to essentially do is that you've got to create predictability in your budget. And when I talk about creating predictability, you've got to then divide your expenses into you divide your budget into 4 different areas. Let's start with area number 1. It's your variable expenses, right? Actually, no, that's number 2. Let's start with number 1. Number 1 is your fixed expenses. And it's those expenses that I've just explained now. They are fixed. You know exactly how much is going to go off your bank account for those expenses. So expenses on budget or allocations, maybe rather call them allocations, right? The first one is fixed. Generally, you know exactly how much money is going to go out for those things because the amount stays the same month after month after month, unless it is one of those debts which has a variable interest rate on it. So when the Reserve Bank changes the repo rate, it means that amount of money will change, but it doesn't change that drastically, right? The second one is your variable. And generally, your variable is your living expenses. So it would be things like your grocery, because your grocery won't stay the same every single month. Your grocery, scaftini for your kids, sometimes the internet, if you've got where they just charge you, electricity, you know you have to pay electricity. However, you don't know how much it's going to be every single month. You've got an idea of what it is, but you don't know how much. And the variable rate or the variable allocation is the best allocation because that's the one where you can make your cuts, right? You can make cuts, you can make changes. Why do I say that? So let's say, for instance, last month you paid 500 for electricity. The next month you're paying 700 for electricity. Then the other month you're paying 900 for electricity. You will be able to determine what in your behavior changes your electrical consumption. And you can say to everybody in the family, okay, right? This month we need to make sure we're spending less than 800 for electricity. So let's switch off the plugs. Let's switch off the geyser if we don't need it. Let's switch off whatever. Whatever in your house that is taking the most electrical consumption, you can start to cut it down. Grocery. If you look at your grocery in the last 3 months and you see that this month you spend 2,000, the next month you spend 1.3, then that other month you spend 2.4, you can say, okay, let's have an allocation for grocer for 2,000. Let's make sure we don't go above 2,000. That's why I say it's one of my favorite areas where you can make cuts because it's variable. But what you need to do is to create predictability within your variable. The third expense, right, is what is called your discretionary or your third allocation, discretionary. And it's actually called the non-essential. So this is where you have things that you pay for, but they are not essential. You don't really need them. It's things that you just pay for, right? They're just there. Like, I don't really have to, but they are there, right? So it will be things like magazine subscriptions. It will be like Apple Music subscription. It will be like you paying for mobile apps. Those are the things that are non-essential. So they are discretionary allocations that you make. This would also include your entertainment. Yes, you may have a money dial for entertainment, but we know that some of them are non-essential. So let's say you say, I need 500 every month. I need to go to Rockets because if I don't go to Rockets, ngizohlanya. Or I need to hang around with my friends at a restaurant even once a month. I need to go to a dinner or else I'm going to lose my mind. Mental health is important, remember. So you know you need to allocate 500, but maybe you're spending 5,000 and on non-essentials. So you've got to cut down some of your non-essentials. And the fourth one, which is actually the most important one, is paying yourself first. So those are the 4 areas where you need to create predictability, right? Very important that you create predictability within those 4 areas because they are absolutely important. Right. Let's go back to the questions. Norma says, can I do a follow-up on the apple analogy? What if already you are eating a situation where you're eating 8 apples, then you have 5 as an income, job loss, retrenchment, salary, whatever. Okay, great. That's what I'm talking to now, Norma. You got to find either an addition. So there are only 2 ways. If you are spending more than you make, then you have 2 options. Option number 1 is you need to cut some things out, which is the one I don't like. Option 2 is increase your income, which is ultimately my favorite one, right? However, increasing your income has to be the result that you go to when you are being optimal with your budget. What do I mean? Some people are spending more than they make because they've got a lot of non-essentials and they're not willing to cut them because, as I said, remember, generally the things that you need to cut are the things that give you comfort. So a lot of people may not want to cut what is comfortable to them, and they think that just increasing their income stream will assist. It will not. In fact, you will build a very bad habit of always living above your means because you think you can just add an additional income stream. So it is important to remember that you need to optimize your budget first. So you've got to go through those expenses, those 4 allocations that I spoke about, which is the fixed, the variable, the discretionary, and paying yourself first. Once you have fixed those, then what you've got to do is now say, okay, there's only so much I can cut. Now I have to increase my income streams. There's no other option that I've got here other than to increase my income streams. And what you've got to do is once you have increased an income stream, you've got to ring fence a certain allocation. So let's say, for instance, you decide that I'm going to add on selling Avon. You don't need to make 10,000 Rand from selling Avon, even if you make an extra 500 every month. But you've got to take that Avon amount and you've got to ring fence it to one of these expenses. So you actually almost have to do a thing where you divide your income and you say, my income from my salary will go to these allocations. My income from my side hustle will go to this allocation. That is important to you to do, because if you take all your money and you put it under one basket, it will be difficult for you to allocate that money to where you really need it. You will start splitting it up and some of it will go back to the non-essentials because you'll be like, but I'm getting an extra 500. I'm sure I can do like my hair, or I'm sure I can just like go to the dinner twice in a month now. So I would say if you have optimized the budget and you've cut out all the non-essentials and you've created predictability in your budget and you are being productive, so your budget is actually reflective of how and how you can be the most productive and bring in the most income, then you've got to say, I need an additional income stream. Now that income stream, I've got to ring fence to a certain allocation. So I'm going to write it here. Your additional income stream needs to be allocated to ring fenced to an allocation. Are we good? Is everybody on the same board, right? The next question is, can I include entertainment on a bracket of paying myself? No. So entertainment, so let's deal with paying yourself first. When we talk about paying yourself first, we talk about you paying yourself in the future. So in other words, for you to create apples, you've got to take today's apples, put them somewhere where they can grow so that in the future, you have additional apples. That's paying yourself first. So paying yourself first is not consumption of today's apples. It is taking today's apples and putting them away so that those apples can pay you in the future. So paying yourself first equals paying yourself in the future. Let me write that down. Paying yourself first I can't spell. Equals paying yourself in the future. Right. So you've got to, in other words, if you earn 5 apples, you've got to say, I live off 4 apples, and the 1 apple every single month I'm planting. Every month you are planting. Every month you are planting. Eventually, you're going to get to a harvest. Are we together, class? Every single month, if you earn 5 apples, you've got to eat 4, and 1 has to go to the future. Remember, it's not going to look the same way for everyone. For some people, they may live off 2 apples and be able to plant 3. Some people may live off 3 apples, plant 1 apple, and take risks with the other apple. So it's important that you, remember what I said, you need to create a budget that works for your financial situation. And it's okay that in some months, there may be a situation where you are unable to actually pay yourself first. So we don't want to put you under pressure to say, you've got to pay yourself first. Sometimes what you've got to do is to first get to a point where you are not eating all 5 apples. So it's that situation that Norma was talking about, to say, what if you have 5 apples, but you need to eat 8? So what we've got to do is that every month we've got to work towards making sure that you eat less and less and less apples. So it may be a 6 months journey, maybe a 12 months journey, where you've got 5 apples that you are getting every month, but you're spending 8, then you're spending 7, then you're spending 6, and then you're spending 5, and then we get you to a point where you're spending 4, and now you can plant the last apple. So that's why I say, you've got to look at, don't go around copying other people's budgets, because that is the one way first class ticket to getting yourself into trouble, because you want to do what Nicolette is doing, you want to do what Norma is doing, you want to do what Shumani is doing. That is not the way to manage your finances. You manage your finances by looking at your own situation and saying, okay, in my situation currently, I'm earning 5 apples, but I'm eating 6. Where can I start cutting to make sure that I'm well within the 5? Then once you get yourself to the 5, and you must be kind to yourself. I find that a lot of people are not kind. People will say to me, yeah, I'm approaching age 30 and I'm doing nothing. Leborang, at 10:38, you can't hear anything. You gotta log out and log back in, my sister, because my brother, hey, you know, South African names are unisex. So now I don't know if Lebrang is a lady or a gent. But at 10:38, you gotta log in out, my sister, out, my brother. So it's important that you look at your own situation. Let's move on from this thing. So I want you to take a piece of paper wherever you are sitting. I want you to now start allocating some money. Let's allocate it even from just the top of our heads. Let's say, what are my fixed expenses? Those ones everybody knows, right? What are my fixed allocations? So let's say you need 10,000 Rand. Then what are your variable, your living expenses that change? Let's say you need another 10,000 Rand. Then you go into, what are my pay yourself first? Let's say you're paying yourself first 3,000. And then there is the last thing. Because we're Black, a majority of us in this group. Because we're South African, a majority of us in this group. So it doesn't matter whether you're Black, whether you're white, whether you're Indian. So I take back that because we're Black. Most of us, at some level, are spending money on family members. May not be your direct family, right? Yes, I did. She did disturb my train of thought. Sorry, guys. So most of us on copying people, yes. Okay, just to wrap up the copying idea, please stop copying. Don't copy somebody else's budget. Let me come back. Most of us are spending money on things that we know for a fact. Umama, my mom at home needs assistance. My sister needs assistance. My cousin needs assistance. My friend may need financial assistance. So your family, Black tax is not only restricted to your family members. It is restricted to any amount of money that you may need to pay or give someone that you are not sure whether it's going to come back or not. Now, I hear a lot of people saying to me, yeah, hey, black tax in Shapile last month. You've got to create what is called predictability in your budget. So if you have a trend, remember, we say past performance is not indicative of what is going to happen when you are planning your finances. However, trends are very important to look at. So look at the trends in your budget. If you have a trend where you have borrowed or you have paid for a family member in the last 12 months more than 4 times, it means that you need to create an allocation for black tax, even if you are not going to pay it every single month. So what you're essentially doing, if you do happen to be lucky that you don't borrow anybody money or lend anybody money, or you don't pay for your sister's child school fees, or you don't do this, that money is going to sit in your bank account and it can play the role of emergencies, your emergency fund. That's the other thing that people don't allocate their money to, is an emergency fund. So when we come back to the idea of paying yourself first, there's 2 ways in which you got to pay yourself first. You got to pay yourself first for emergencies, and you got to pay yourself first for the future, right? Pay yourself first for emergencies and pay yourself for the future. What is paying yourself first, and what does it actually look like? Paying yourself first, this is what I do when I pay myself first. But remember, you got to look at how many apples you are earning every single month. So when I paid myself first, because I'm not very disciplined, or I wasn't in the beginning when I started, my pay myself first is every single amount of money, regardless of the amount, 30% of it is going to go into my future money. 30% of my income, it does not matter how much the income is, goes to my future. 30% of it. It has to. I'm in a choice because I don't know what the future is going to look like. And that's the other thing that I think it's important for us to recognize. Our financial situations are not the same. Going back to that conversation about don't copy other people. Our financial situations are not the same. I'm self-employed, which means that I am at the mercy of either my product or my services putting money into my bank account. When you are employed, you are at the mercy of that company that you're working for, standing every single month to be able to pay you your salary. So most people who have a salary that comes in have what is called job security. Things have changed a little, but we can't deny the fact that there are people who still have that job security or that salary security, right? Then there are people who are self-employed who might not necessarily have it. So my need to save for the future may look a little different than a person who has salary security. However, we both have a need to put money away for the future. We both have a need to plant. However, the rate at which we plant may look different, because if tomorrow people decide this financial literacy thing, say it's now enough, we don't want to hear any more about it, and banks and financial institutions decide we don't need Nicolette anymore, there's enough people that we can use, and my income, my projections start to simmer down, I'm going to depend on my plant and my whatever, my harvest, it's called my harvest. I'm going to depend on my harvest, right, of the plants that I planted while I still was able to get apples to plant. Because there may come a time when I do not have apples, where I do not have apples coming in every month, and I'm going to need to go and harvest from my plantation. So it's similar to somebody who is working. However, the need and the pace is different. And it's very important. Thank you guys for helping, Laborang. It's very important that, again, you are well aware of your financial situation. So when we talk about paying yourself first, we talk about you dividing your pay yourself first into 2 different categories. So your emergencies plus your future. Now, again, as I said, mine is 30%. Yours can be 5%, 10%, depending on how many apples you consume and you are happy to consume every single month. So if you decide that, you know what, actually, I'm not too stressed about the future because, again, remember when I started, I had said I was earning a high salary simply because I was not getting fringe benefits. So in other words, I have to create my retirement money by myself. Whereas if you are working in a company where you are getting fringe benefits, you already know there's a certain amount of money that is allocated to your retirement. And that is essentially planting for the future. So you might find that the money that comes into your bank account, you don't have to allocate too much of it to planting for the future, unless of course you want to build wealth. But if you want to just be comfortable and live a comfortable, content life and be able to go into the future knowing that you have planted and you can harvest anytime, it may mean that you can say, you know what, actually, whatever I'm paying in retirement and maybe 5% of what I get into my actual bank account, I can plant for the future. But you may need to allocate a bigger amount of money to emergencies because your emergencies could essentially really wreak havoc in your income. So let me give you an example. So in your budget, you are already contributing to retirement, you're contributing to medical aid, you're contributing to all these things that you're contributing to. Then you are earning, let's say, 5 apples, but you need to spend 4 apples. And you decide that, you know what, actually, in the 5 apples that I'm spending, I'm going to spend 4 apples and I'm only going to put half an apple into my future spending. But you're not allocating any to your emergencies. What happens when you have an emergency? For instance, what happens when you have that 3 months where they say you got to take a salary cut, as Norma indicated? Now you don't have emergency funds. So now you are in trouble because what is done now is that you may start earning only 3 apples. And all of a sudden, you don't have a harvest, emergency harvest, to go and get to cover you for this extra apple that you needed. Hence why I say, for a lot of people that work where they've got a salary security, you need to make sure you've got emergency savings. And a huge chunk of your pay yourself first needs to go to ensuring that your emergency fund is well funded. But for somebody that, like me, I need to ensure that I'm putting money away for my future and just a smaller amount into my emergencies. And this is simply because I don't have a predictability of how many apples I'm going to earn every single month. I could this month earn 5 apples, next month earn 8 apples, the other month earn 10 apples, next month earn 3 apples. So I have to put a huge chunk into the future because even in the future, things can go dry for a very long time. And you will see that I then take my apples where I've got extra apples and I allocate them to things like rental so that I can get a passive new stream of apples that are coming in. So that on the months where there are no more apples for me, I've got a place to go and tap into. This is why I say, again, I'm going to keep reiterating this, that it is important for you to look at your own finances to be able to create a budget for yourself. How do I budget extra for black tax after sending their monthly allowance? No, you don't. No, you do not. Guys, you cannot give people apples you don't have. If you earn 5 apples, that is predictable. You know you're going to get 5 apples this month. You spend 3 apples. 1 needs to go to your black tax and 1 needs to go to your savings. There is no way that after you've allocated the 1 to your black tax, where are you going to get the other apples from? No. And it's important to have the conversation with your family. You have to go and sit them down and say, guys, Mina, I love using this apple analogy because it doesn't tell people how much you earn. They don't need to know that. What you can simply say is, family, Mina, I earn 5 apples. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Right? 1 is for my fixed expenses. Second one is for my variable or living expenses, my debt, my living expenses. The other one is to make sure I'm productive. Petrol, food, takeaways at work, and the money dials need to come in here. This one is for you guys. This is the black tax apple that I'm giving you guys. And this one needs to go into my savings. Because if something happens to us tomorrow, I can't even give you those apples, right? So if you have allocated this to your living expenses, your debt, whatever, you've allocated this to your variables, you've allocated this to your productive expenses, this is their black tax, and this is to savings, where are you supposed to get additional apples to give them? Wait, there are no more apples, and they need to understand that. So it's for me, this conversation with the apples makes it so much easier to explain to your family, apple tree has no more apples. Pelile. Wait until next month and wait for your fair allocation of the apula. They must wait. Because you are not a bank. You don't have money just springing out of the blue. You must predict, you must have a predictable budget. And your budget says, once the money for black tax is out, there's no more. And your family can be taught this, and you've got to train them. But the problem happens is when people say to you in the middle of the month, hey, Nicolette, we're looking for what, and you find a way to give them that money. You are teaching them again that when they need money, you will always be available to give them money. I the other day said to my sister, she asked me for help. I said to her, wait until my next budget cycle. Then I will create an apple for you. Because now I know there's an apple that needs to be created. But I cannot make an apple happen at the moment that you want an apple to happen. It just does not work. It does not work. And let's be also clear about what constitutes as a need for you to create an extra apple. We don't create apples out of nothing. We create apples by saying, because I now need to add an extra apple that needs to go to my family, one of these needs to be cut out of your own budget. So you've got to decide which part of your life you are going to make uncomfortable to create this extra apple that you don't really have, but you want to allocate to your family. Where in your expenses are you going to decide to cut out an apple? So that's also, it's important that one remembers that, because remember, if you're giving money that you don't have to somebody else, your children ultimately suffer. Your productivity suffers. Your dates are the ones that end up getting into trouble, right? Because you are choosing somebody else. You are choosing somebody else over your financial health and your financial standing, right? Saddam, please ask the questions under the question button, but I'll answer it. Is it best to do stop order, or one needs to be disciplined enough to allocate a certain percentage of their budget? I would say if you are a salaried individual, it makes sense for you to put in a stop order, because again, your salary is the same month after month after month after month. So you know exactly how much money is going out of your account. So you can put in a stop order. And it is important to put in that stop order, because when you pay yourself first, it is exactly as the phrase says, pay yourself first, not after you have allocated ama apula. So this needs to happen first. This needs to go out of your bank account first, and then you allocate ama apula to the rest of the things. So it is important that you do pay yourself first. And if you know you don't have the discipline to physically move money, then make sure that you automate that system. Make sure that you put in that stop order. I promise you, you will start to see that the moment your salary comes in and this goes away, this amount goes away, you start to know how to budget, to adapt to only having 4 apples all of a sudden. It is a habit that you need to form. It does not happen overnight. It will feel a bit uncomfortable, but it has to happen if you want to manage your finances well. So today we are dealing with hard truths. If you want to manage your finances well, you need to make sure that this happens before you even start allocating money to the rest of the things. Because you've got to put money away. You have to, for the future or for your emergencies. Right. Apples don't make themselves. They don't. If you are not making, unless you are earning more than 5 apples, you only have 5 apples to work with. If you decide to add an extra apple that didn't exist somewhere here, you gotta compromise. Something is gonna get compromised. The question is, what area of your life are you going to make uncomfortable? You've got to ask yourself that question. All right, there was another question that I saw. Hey, Nicolette, I have trouble knowing how to allocate a percentage for paying yourself first as my salary changes every month due to kilometers staying for my company. It's also difficult. Okay, so what you got to do is you've got to average out your salary. So I'm in the same bracket as you because I get different amounts of money every month. But instead of trying to be hysterical and say, woo, this month I got 80,000. Oh my goodness, I can spend. Because remember, predictability is a powerful thing that happens in your brain. Because if you know that you can survive off 30,000 and then you get that additional amount of money that month and then it goes to 35,000, I promise you that 5,000 you're going to waste it. I promise you, you're going to waste it. Because in your head, you know exactly how much you need to get by every single month. You need 30,000. So any additional amount of money over and above the money you know you've created predictability for, you are going to waste. Which is why the moment any additional monies come into your bank account, I would say remove them. Remove them totally from your transactional bank account. Put it into another bank account. If an Apple need arises, then you know you may have some money for an Apple. So what I would say is create the predictability. Know exactly how much you need every month so that any amount over and above what you need every month, immediately, you see, I've got more than 30,000, send that money away. Send it away immediately. But remember, you need to make sure you're sending it somewhere where you do not have access to it. Because, people will say, I'm saving, but they're putting money away into an account they can just access any day. So it is important to make sure for that money, you're putting it somewhere where you do not have access to it. Right? I've done all the questions on that side. All right. I think I've answered you, Google. Right, yes, everyone's got a threshold, basically. You've got like a somewhere where it goes, anything above here, it's a waste. It's a waste of money. It's like how they say, my ex-boyfriend, I'm going to be very crude now. My ex-boyfriend used to say to me, because I used to complain about how small my boobs are. I'd say, my boobs are too small. I need to get bigger boobs. My boobs are too small. And then he would say to me, more than a handful is a waste. So anything that goes above and beyond a handful, you're wasting. It's the same thing with our money. Most of us mentally, we have a number every month that we need. The moment it goes beyond that number, we waste that amount of money. So why government people don't know how to allocate money well, because some of them, they have to deal with their own mentality first and then apply it to the fact that they are dealing with government and state money, but they forget that part. And then anything that comes above that, it's a jumble in their head. They just waste it. Right. Katrina says, the problem I face every month, family thinking you have, you better tell your family. Guys, a lot of finance is psychology and behavior. Let me repeat that. A lot of finance is psychology and behavior. You've got to mold people's behavior, or you've got to psychologically get them to understand where you are. Give you an example. I have a brother, stepbrother, who thinks I'm rich. In his head, Nicolette can pop up money anytime. And I'm like, of course I'm rich, because I gotta have that mentality, right? You've gotta be positive. You've gotta have the mentality of the things that you're working towards. So I have money. That much I know. But it's my money. It's not our money. It's Nicolette's money. Because who has to wake up every morning? Who has to get himself motivated every day? It is I. So I'm the one who wakes up every morning. So yes, I do have money, but it's my money. So somehow he thinks that my money is his money, it's everybody's money. So when he was having the baby, he said to me, oh, I need to throw my girlfriend a baby shower. Where do I enter in you needing to throw a baby shower for your girlfriend? How does it affect my finances? This is how it affects my finances. He needs me to give him 7,000 rand to throw his baby mama, who is now his wife, so a baby shower. So I said to him, brother, I can't do that. And I could see that he was not understanding my account. Then he went down to, okay, can you give me like 5,000? And I'm like, Hebanna. So I then made a decision, a call. And I was like, let me actually mold this man's behavior. So instead of giving him 7, instead of giving him 5,000, I think I gave him 10 to begin with. Said, here's 10,000 rand. Ungabui. You see all the money I'm giving you? It's all the money I have for you. For the rest of your life. I asked him, said, do you want me to give you 10,000 or do you want me to give you 5,000? Because I want to mold his behavior now. I'm saying to him, if I give you 5,000, you may ask money from me again. But if I give you 10,000, we agree that you never ask money from me again. Human beings are very flawed. In his head, he's thinking, yo, 10,000. I can do a lot of 10,000 right now because he's thinking for right now, right? So he took the 10,000 and now he's not allowed to ask money from me ever again because he went for greed. And that's how you mold behavior. Give you another example of my mother. In December, what generally happens is that people will say to me, they won't ask for money directly, but whenever you leave the house, vroom, they hear a car going vroom, send a text, can you come back with this? Can you come back with that? Can you come back with this? Can you come back with that? I was like, oh, you guys think that money grows on trees in my world, right? So let me help you. So I decided now, every December, in the beginning of December, I take a certain amount of money that I have budgeted for my family and I give it to my mother. So now, because they don't see my mother as having money like I do, now, when they ask money from my mother, they've got scam. Because they don't have scam when they ask money from me. But when they ask for my mother, they've got scam. So now what I say to them is, no. I've given mama the money. If you want money, go ask mama. And they're afraid of mama. So a lot of them now don't ask. If somebody says, oh, can you bring custard? I say, ask mama. Why? Because mama somehow is the one who has money for them. Right. That's how it works. Now, somebody saying, Retabile says, it's really sad if you can't even save 30% of your income. It's not. It's not. Let me tell you, it's not. It's not sad. What it says is that there is a job that needs to happen. And the job is we now need to, remember I said, guys, don't compare yourself to other people. I have a very, very important reason as to why I need to save 30% of my income. Because tomorrow I may not have an income. But for somebody that does have that income and the salary is the thing, you may not be able to save 30% because you don't earn a lot of money to be able to save 30%. So even as little as 5% is important for you to put away. So that's one of the things that you've got to remember, right? Okay. So just to come back to how do you start? Now, a lot of people sometimes struggle, right? A lot of people struggle with budgeting, sitting down, writing down the budget and doing all those things. I suggest you download some apps. 22/7 app is an amazing way in which you can help yourself budget. FNB has got the money manager. So if you're using FNB, you can use the money manager. Capitec Bank has a budgeting feature on its mobile app. Or you can do it old school, which I like doing. The old school way for me is the best way, pen and a piece of paper. And you really write down the things that you're spending. And remember, your budget is not going to look the same every single month. So it's important also that you remember that you don't write a budget and you're like trying every month to live up to this budget because you're going to disappoint yourself. So rather say every month at the end, especially if you have a family or if you have kids, or if you have a spouse, or if you have a partner, I would say every single month, allocate one day in the month where you guys have your wines or your fruit juice or your coffee, your tea and cake, and you sit down and you do the family budget or the household budget. And you say, these are the things that we need to put money aside. And you print out your bank statements so that you can ensure that when you say we spent this amount of money on data last month, you know exactly how much money you spent. Guys, my clothes are too big. It always looks funny because then I'm trying to adjust it and it's a bit weird, right? And this bra is hurting me. Oh. Okay, so it's important that you print out your bank statements. But what I want you to do today is print out your bank statement and do the bank statement exercise. If you don't know what the bank statement exercise is, you need 4 different highlighters. Remember those 4 allocations I spoke about? You need to allocate money to your living expenses. These are things that are not coming off a debit order. So rent, mortgage is coming off a debit order. Some people's rent comes off a debit order. So if you are in that business where your stuff comes off a debit order, it's fine. You put it under the debit order. So make sure that you put all your living expenses, grocery, those are things that don't come off a debit order that you are paying. Then you put your dates. Then you put in your how much money you're allocating to paying yourself first. So this would be all your savings and all your investments. Put them under one color. And then you've got to put in the entertainment, the discretionary, the black tax, all under another color. Data, takeaways, all those things are non-essential. I'm sorry to hit you with this, but they are non-essential. However, once you've got them under there, you've got to decide which one of these is your money dial. And then you've got to take your money dial and you've got to put it under your living expenses. Because your money dial is actually a living expense. You need it. It is your drug. You need it. And I'm not going to say cut it out because that would be really traumatizing you. Right. So do the bank statement exercise so that you can see exactly how much money you need to allocate to the different areas of your life. I'm losing power again, so I need to take a bite of my soup. Right. Tembi says, cost of sessions like these for personal development or buying a book where one can allocate them under the budget for now. They're on ad hoc basis and I want to be something consistent. So again, it is your productive cost. So things like these sessions, things that make your life better, things like gym, those are productive costs because as I said, they make you productive. They are part of who Tembi is. They are part of bettering Tembi, part of personal development for Tembi. So I would put them under your productive costs. Remember, there are 4 different types of expenses that, what's his name? Garrett Ganderson. So I'm going to write you a Garrett Gunderson. He speaks about 4 types of expenses. Okay, so those are productive, destructive, protective, and the last one is lifestyle. Right, so you've got your productive are the things that make you be able to be an asset that makes money. Your destructive are things that really are just non-essential. They're just taking money out of your bank account. Your protective are things like your insurance, making sure that you've got a safe car, making sure you've got a roof over your head. Those things are things that make you protecting the asset. Remember, you are the asset. So we've got to ensure that we are protecting you because you are an important asset. And then the lifestyle is now those things, mental health, no, not mental health. Your lifestyle things are the money dials. What about you and your lifestyle makes you a productive person? So those are the expenses that you've also got to put in there, right? So very, very important for you guys to remember that. Please keep asking your questions so that I may be able to answer your questions. So let's quickly do an actual budget. I'm going to do it in the chat button. an actual budget, right? So let's say, for instance, you've got rent. Let's say you earn 15,000 Rand is your income, and you've got no other income, right? 15,000 Rand is your income. Now, let's say, for instance, in 15,000 Rand, 30%, you're saying maybe 30%, let's say 15% of 15,000. How much is that? Mathematics. Oh, mathematics. Okay. So we're saying 15,000 Rand multiplied by 15%, divide by 100. So 2,250 needs to go into your S, which is the pay yourself first. So the first thing you've got to do on your budget is write pay yourself first, and you write allocating 15%. Right. So now what do we have to work with? So 15% goes off a stop order. It's the 15%, right? And it's 2,250. 2,250 goes off. It's in your thingy. So now you've got 15,000 minus 2,250. So essentially you earn 12,750 that you've got to allocate. These are your apples that you've got to allocate to the different apple categories. So you're working with 12,750. Right. Now you look at your dates. Let's say you say, I've got a car, I've got rent, right? I've got a clothing account, which most people have. I've got a credit card. Okay, let's say car is 4.5. That's your car. And then, and then you've got rent, which is maybe 4,000, right? And then you've got clothing account, and you're paying maybe, let's say, 550. And then you've got credit card, and you are paying maybe 900. And then let's say you've got your money dial. And let's say you are paying in your money dial, let's say you're going out every week, like once a week. So how much do you need? How much do people spend for going out? Okay, let's minus all those things. So 12,750 minus 4,000 for rent, minus 4,500 for your car. Your money is already disappearing. Okay, minus 550 for your clothing account, minus 900 for your credit card, minus 750 for your money dial. You're already sitting on a minus, right? So what do you do in this instance? I said you've got two options, right? You are already saying, this is me really being at my total wits. So I'm literally putting money where I can put money, but I'm still on a deficit of 150. So you either, one, cut somewhere, or two, add income stream. So where can you cut? Where can you cut? You then can say, because I'm not really spending money on, if I'm looking at this, you're not really spending money on things that are like hectic, right? I would say go and renegotiate your car or your credit card or get a sharing apartment. So let's say, for instance, you decide to share your apartment or to share, and your rent goes down to maybe 2,500. Your rent goes down to 2,500. All of a sudden, to this 150, we're adding, because rent was 4,000. 4,000 minus 2.5 is 1.5, right? You add 1.5 all of a sudden, and now you've got a surplus of 1,350. Or you can say, instead of sharing, because I don't like people, I don't want to share my house, you can say, let me add an additional income stream. So let's say, okay, now, because things are not going very well, I need to, either I'm a copywriter, I do copy for people, either I am doing, so whichever way, wherever you can add an additional income stream, I'm selling, I am going to maybe do voiceover work, whatever you can add. Let's say your income stream gives you an additional 500, right? Remember what I said, you've got to ring fence this amount. So you got to ring fence that amount and allocate it to either something there. So let's say you ring fence the 500 to saying, I want to pay off my clothing account. So you add on, remember you were on a deficit of minus 150, right? So you add 500 from your additional income stream, and all of a sudden you've got an additional 350 that you have every month. That 350, you're not going to go and blow it. No. What you're going to do with it is you're going to allocate it to something else. I would say allocate it to a snowball method, so to one of your dates. So you allocate it to the clothing account. And instead of paying now 550 to your clothing account, you are paying 350 plus 500, which is 850. And that's how you do the snowball method. So you can see already what you're doing is you're using your budget. You've understood what your budget is. You've understood what your financial status is. Your answer is, I need an additional income stream. It doesn't give me 10,000. It gives me just an additional 500. Okay, but I needed an additional 150. But now I've got 500, which means I've got a surplus of 350. I'm not going to waste this 350. I'm going to allocate it so that I can reduce one of my dates. Because the quicker I close my clothing account, the quicker I free up 550. Plus the 350, the quicker I actually free up 900 all of a sudden. Does that make sense? Are we making sense? Am I making sense? Or am I making sense? Are we making sense? Right? So it's important for you to do it like this. So this is called the snowball method. So not only now have we found you a way, and remember, once you now have actually freed up this, you've paid off the clothing account, and you now have 900 every month. That 900, you can allocate it to the next date. So you could essentially allocate it to your credit card if you want to pay off the credit card. But let's say you are like, you know what? I actually don't want to pay off the credit card. I'm comfortable now. Remember, you now have an additional 900 every month that you are paying because we've paid off the clothing account. You have an additional 900. Now you can say, actually, this 900, let it become an apple into my savings. So instead of increasing the 2,250, let me allocate this now to planting. Maybe I can plant in shares. Maybe I can plant in REITs. Maybe I can plant in a tax-free savings account. So you now take that apple and you go and actually plant it. So when you started off, so where you actually, sorry guys, somebody was calling me. Where you actually started off not having enough apples, having a deficit of minus 150 rand in apples, you have now said, I'm going to add on an additional income stream to create a new apple. I've created this apple. This apple now balances me out. I'm able to spend, but I'm killing one of the debts, one of the apples that I was paying off. I'm killing this apple. I'm freeing up this apple. Now, all of a sudden, I don't need to eat all 5 apples. I've got an additional apple now. So instead of, because I already, remember, we're working now with 12,000 because you're already putting money away for emergencies. Now you're like, actually, let me use this 900 that I freed up to plant apples. Now so that I can earn a passive income. And that passive income now becomes your additional apple every single month. I'm hoping that somewhere in the stratosphere, things are starting to come together. So that's how you use your budgeting to figure out what is my status. Once you know your status, what are my solutions? Am I cutting or am I adding an income stream? Once you've got the solutions, then you move from solution now to saying, actually, I've got a solution. In fact, this solution now is giving me more than I actually need. Let me use the solution to actually start investing. Of course, the conversation on investing is a whole different conversation. I'm going to have a session on the 27th to talk about investing 101. Where do you start investing? But what I find is that a lot of people need to first move from the area where they can know exactly how much they spend, exactly how much they've got left so that they can use this money to actually invest. Right. Now, there are 3 things that you can also do when you are looking to find additional money in your budget. Remember, this idea that we used there was to add an income stream. Let's say you are really so busy, because in Johannesburg, people are very busy. In the big cities, Cape Town, Johannesburg, Windhoek, people say, I'm so busy. I can't find, am I that shiny? I can't find an additional income stream. What essentially needs to happen is that you may need to cut. So you may need to do the 3 C's. 3 R's, sorry. And the 3 R's are, R number 1 is to restructure. So you gotta restructure, and that's the budgeting. So you restructure through budgeting. Right? R number 2 is to renegotiate. Through credit providers. Right? Now you're going to the bank and you're saying, comrades, this is my budget. I've restructured it. I've done my budget. Nicolette said I must allocate my stuff to this. I have allocated it. I actually cannot afford my life right now. I'm in a situation, it is unfortunate, but I do have to eat 8 apples, but I only earn 5 apples. So instead of me defaulting on your guys' payments, I need you guys to help me restructure this thing, because it's not helping me, it's not helping you that I am missing out on my payments. So let's sit down and restructure the dang, because at the end of the day, the bank wants you to pay back their money. They don't want you to default on your loans. And also, you need to help yourself so that you don't mess up your credit score. You need to make sure that you find a way to be able to pay off your debt. So go to the bank and go and renegotiate now. Now you're sitting down with them and saying, okay, here's the reality. Here's my bank, my structure. I've restructured my budget. This is my income. This is what I spend on. You can see I don't have frivolous spending. I don't have non-discretionary spending. I don't have non-essentials. I'm really paying for the things that I need every single month. But however, I need to eat 8 apples. I only earn 5. And I can't find an additional income stream. I've tried selling, I've tried things, I've tried baking, I've tried this. I'm not finding it. So let's restructure my and renegotiate the interest rates or the terms of my condition of my dates. Then they can do that. Then the bank says, okay, maybe now let's relook at it. Maybe we'll add an extra year into your car loan. Now you don't have to pay 4,500 every month for your car. Now all of a sudden you are paying 3.5 for the car. And all of a sudden you are freed up 1,000 rand in your budget. Do you get what I'm saying? You freed up 1,000 rand. Now, being smart about it, you take that 1,000 rand and you do the 3rd C, which is R number 3. I mean, R. Why do I keep saying C? R number 3, which is reallocate. So you take that 1,000 rand and you reallocate it so that you can finish one debt off fast, which is now the clothing account, right? So clothing account, you're paying more to the clothing account, you finish the clothing account, you take the clothing account money, you allocate it to the credit card, you pay for the credit card, you finish the credit cards. So very, very important. And I love what Gugu is saying, because even the renegotiating is not just on dates. Sometimes you may find that you are actually paying too much on insurance, and that's what she's talking about. Oh, why does this whole thing move? I can't see Google's comment now. Renegotiating actually worked for me on my car insurance, only to find out that they're supposed to do this every year. So exactly. So instead of just stubbornly paying a certain amount, and you can shop around, especially for insurance. Shop around. Say to them, guys, I want to pay insurance. However, this 1,000 that I'm paying, I cannot pay for it. So go to there's many. Let me give you some insurance companies to try out. Naked, Pineapple. These guys are small insurance companies. They are small insurance companies. And what they've done is they're trying to break through the mold. So let me explain this. It's like, okay, maybe this might not be a good example, but I'm going to use it anyway. like a drip, the guy who makes a drip sneaker, right? He needs to break through the mold of Nike. In South Africa, he's even got Batu to compete against, Adidas, New Balance, all these guys. And the only way he can break through that mold is by making sure that his sneaker, as much as it's got good quality, it also needs to be price comparable, right? So his price needs to be a price that you and I can pay for him to get a share of the market. So he has to break through this big model that these big sneaker companies have already created, right? So what he essentially has to do is he has to drop his price. So guys like Naked, Pineapple, Solvency, they've also come into this big bad world of big insurance companies like your Old Mutual IYs, like the My Way, like the First for Women, and they're having to break into this mold. And the only way they do that is by ensuring that they can offer you good quality, but they can offer you insurance where they are breaking some of the traditional insurance rules. Like what Ukuku is talking about, making sure that when your car depreciates, they also lower your premium. When your car is parked and you're not driving it, then they lower your premium. So things like that, they've had to now be very innovative. So generally their premiums are very low. So go and shop around. So there are various ways in your budget where you can actually start cutting. Let's say, for instance, grocery is the issue. If you find grocery is the issue, my helper, for instance, what they've done with her friends is that they pay stokvel. And then what they do is they buy the dry foods in bulk. So they would buy dry foods for like 6 months worth of dry food from their stokvel money. And then they know every month she only needs to allocate a small amount of money to her groceries because she needs to buy only the fresh stuff, the meat, and all that stuff. And it reduced her grocery budget incredibly. So it's those kind of ways in which you can start making shifts within your budget so that you can reallocate money to something else. But again, remember I said, you can only cut and reduce as much. Then you get to a point where there's no more reduction, so it doesn't work. So rather find the additional income stream so that you can work your budget through all the things that you want to work through. I'm kind of coming to the end of our budgeting session. Please send through your questions, I am here to answer all your questions. And I'm going to be sending you guys a budget template and some, a summary of today's tips and tricks of how to actually get started with your budget. As Thingy said, 22/7 app traumatized her, but it's a good way to be able to budget. It will tell you when you're spending more than what you're actually earning. It will be able to assist you. And if you want tips as to how to go to the bank and renegotiate, you can send us an email also, will help you. And the email address is, please send your emails to lerato@nicolettem.com. And we will able to assist you in what are some of the things that you can say to the bank, what you need to have prepared for you to be able to negotiate. But essentially, when you are going to go and renegotiate, you have to be honest with the bank. You can't want to renegotiate without actually knowing exactly what it is that you're negotiating. And you can't do it just for the sake of, I don't want to pay anymore, or I want to eat 8 apples, but I'm only earning 5. You have to be in a position where you have to be given an opportunity to renegotiate. So I would say, make sure that the budget is already done. You've got it on paper. You've got your income. You've got your salary slip. So when you go in front of the bank consultant, they must be able to see Guti Yazin. Lomuntu Lona doesn't want to default on their payment. However, they are in a financial bind. And we as the bank have to help them. The bank has a responsibility to help you if you are in a situation where you cannot pay. It is better to rather renegotiate the terms and conditions of your loans, either adding on an extra year or maybe just slightly increasing the interest rate so that you are paying less every month so that you can eat the right amount of apples that you need rather than defaulting and that thing messing up with your entire credit score. Very, very important for you to remember this. If you have any more questions, I will be taking your questions. No. Can I categorize data under additional income expenses if I use it to make money? Then it needs to be categorized under your productive. So it means that it has to go under your living expenses, because remember, if it is helping you make money, it means that it actually is a productive expense. So it does need to go under your productive expenses to make sure that it is properly allocated, so that you don't cheat it and then end up buying data every month. Because what I see, every day, and I see with a lot of people when they send me their bank statements is that they want to buy data every single day. And remember that you get charged fees if you do it like that. So don't do that. Rather allocate a certain amount of money to your data, knowing exactly what it is that you do with your data. And don't waste it on sitting on Instagram. Guys, at the end of the day, you have to know your finances and you have to be disciplined. So it is important that you love yourself enough to have your finances in a good standing and to be very realistic with your finances. Because for me, to be able to have a good financial standing with yourself, that's self-love. If you don't love yourself, you are not going to try and fix your finances. It will not be important to you to fix. But if you love yourself and you want good mental health, I would say go through the processes of doing this, because it will help you. Last year, I helped a man that was in debt of over 500,000 Rand. And all we did is we sat down, we did his budget, because he wasn't budgeting. We sat down, we did his budget, we reallocated his money, we went to renegotiate his payments, and that man got to a point. Remember also the thing about not being able to have enough money. If you know you don't earn enough apples, and you know every month you need more apples than what you earn, it is destructive for the mind. It is destructive for the soul. That's how you are also on a one-way ticket to destruction, because ultimately you are not feeling like you are in control of your finances. It is nice to know that you are in control of your finances. Every month you know you're earning enough apples, you're putting away some of your apples, you're planting some of your apples. It is nice to be in that space. It's like being in a good relationship. It gives you the same vibes and the same feeling, but you've got to work your way to be able to get there. I hope this session was productive. As I said, hit us up if you need help. I will be able to help you, but I need to know you have started the journey and you are where it is. As Lerato said, I have a new package called Reset Your Finances. It's coaching sessions, 3 of them. So it's for 3 months where we reset your finances. We're looking at your budgeting. We're creating a financial behavior audit of you. And then the other one is reducing your debt. And that one is 950. This one is 750. And you get a copy of What's Your Move. So if there's nothing else, I will see you guys hopefully soon on either one of those packages, or we will work together to try and get you to a place where you are in control of your finances. Thank you very much for tuning in. This session, you will be able to come back and watch it again and again and again. So as long as you have the link, you have access to being able to come back and rewatch it and rewatch it and rewatch it and take your notes. But we will send through a summary note, and I will send you guys a template. So thank you so much, guys. It's been really great. Absolutely great. And bye. Yes, definitely cheers to financial freedom. We will all get there, all of us. I want to see what the poll says. Did you guys answer the poll? I like that. So the poll results as they are currently, 31% of us are saying I have too many debts. So please, let's do that debt reduction program that we've got. It's a 6-month one. For 6 months, we'll get you where you need to be. 21% say I don't earn enough. Let's help you with that. And 27% say it's all in my head. Let's put it down, or we put it on a mobile thingy. Bye, guys. Have a blessed Sunday. Don't spend too much money on alcohol. Oh, you can't buy alcohol unless you're in Namibia. Are the bottle stores open in Namibia, Katarina? Because I know in South Africa, no bottle stores on a weekend. But that doesn't mean people don't go out, because people then go out to actually restaurants and drink at restaurants. Oh, they are open. Okay. Nice. Don't spend too much money on alcohol. It's not going to come back. I love you guys. I'll see you guys on the next one.